Okay, okay, I've actually got it figured out. I fixed it. This is a big win for me. Right at 420, even better. Okay. Anyway, we're gonna pretend that didn't happen, and I'm going to actually do this. Uh, this would probably be better to start off with the example that I have, which would be the D20 tracker that I've actually already made. Um, but I realized that it's not all that good, so I thought I'd go ahead and remake it. And that's kind of what the purpose of this video so far is going to be remaking this D20 tracker. I guess I'll go ahead and start out by showing off the old one so that there's at least some sort of frame of reference here to go off of. And if for whatever reason you actually sat through that 4 minutes of horrid audio, um, thank you. But the actual purposes of these videos, or these streams rather, is to get community input on making these sort of projects and building something that can be put out as a like quote unquote product, I guess you could say, almost. Um, Obviously, like a D20 tracker is not a particularly important thing, or it's just for fun, and that's what a lot of this is going to be. But things like budgets or other possibly helpful items for people, it would be fun to sort of make those things and get some community input on things I might not think about when making a budget, because I have my own sort of ideas of what I think a budget should have, but I think it's important to get a lot of people's perspectives on what they might want or what they require in some specific situation, and how we can accommodate those things. But anyway, so we're going to go ahead and go over this, kind of what's going on here. This is a really simple sort of tracker. I don't really like it anymore, looking back on it. I was really impressed with myself when I had first made this, but okay, that's not getting picked up. Let me just... Alright, I'm back. Um, Sorry about that. There's a vacuum outside. Looks like it might just be being picked up just a little bit. Bit of a shame, but it is what it is. This is what first streams are sometimes, I guess. Anyway, so there's a bunch of hidden stuff here. We'll go ahead and unhide it. A lot of this is really unnecessary, but it's just because I really didn't understand Excel all that well when I had first started. But basically, I wanted some way to track the roles that we were doing in D&D. And if you don't know, basically there's a D20. You roll it. It's 1 through 20. It's like a die. And depending on what the roll is, 1 being bad and 20 being the best, different outcomes will happen. Sometimes you have to roll against someone, the DM in this case, and generally speaking, not always the case, but if your rolls are higher, it's good. If they're lower, it's bad. And so I wanted to kind of check to see if our DM was cheating, because it just seemed like he won all the freaking time, and it was really annoying. So I went ahead and created this. It's, again, pretty simple. So before, with everything hidden, we can see these sort of rows here. This is where all the input is. Basically, this is our DM, player, and so on. And you would just put the player's role here, and you'd have to do that in each column. So let's say the first roll of the day, usually initiation, and so we would have, everybody would do a roll whatever we got, I would go ahead and just put it in here, just to have it as a roll that gets input, just so you could also check at the end of the day just what your average rolls were, which is what this line is here, rolls in a session. I didn't explicitly put it out there, but that's what it is. And also I'll just note now that these gray boxes are just borders. Actually, I didn't realize it, but I'm looking at the stream layout and it actually fits as it's supposed to, but I have a pretty wide monitor now, and so these borders are sort of for like a 1920 by 1080 like screen resolution, so they don't really do anything other than just kind of take away the white cells, and that's it. But anyway, so it gets inputted here, and then that's kind of it if there's no roll against the DM. And of course I put the DM's rolls in here too, and they were all sort of checked. I think this is just a count formula. Yeah, so just go ahead and count it here, and just for fun, just to see how many rolls we did. So the entire time that I had this up, you know, we did 1,800 rolls. Technically the DM did more than this because they did rolls we couldn't see, which is just a standard of D&D, but they usually let us see the rolls for a lot of the damage stuff and rolling against us, because we complain quite a bit that he must be cheating in some way, shape, or form. But let's go see if we can find one right here. Okay, so this is, again, pretty simple. This would just check the percentage difference between these two. So this would say, in short, well, I'm not going to go into the formula just yet because, well, there's nobody in chat. And I'm just kind of sitting here critiquing my own stuff that I don't like anymore. But it would just be like a sort of just like a simple division, just saying, let me ensure that this is here and we can actually divide it. I think there's a check also in the other cells, because yeah, it looks like I made sure to have like a between here to say, okay, is it between 50% and 95% when you divide it? If so, put it here between 20% and 45%. In this case, this is what this is. We can go ahead and check that. By the way, this is just to put it on even playing field. We say this divided by 20, this divided by 20, and then just subtract them to see the percentage difference. Probably a better way to do that. But it would just basically insert a 1 if the condition became true. And by the way, these are in instances where the DM won, and I wanted to check the percentage difference between the die on the win, and then in the green column is just the time we would win. So in this case, we can see that the roll was higher than the DM's roll. As a technical note, this doesn't technically mean you win the roll. It just means that your roll was higher than the DM's. And so if the DM had a modifier, then they could still be technically higher. And of course, that would be in comparison to your modifiers if you had any. That's not really important. The point is that I wanted to just check the actual dice rolls itself. And so these would all fill out properly. And once all that got filled out, I think I can just Control Z it, right? Yeah, there we go. I hit all that because it's just annoying, and if I'm inputting it, I can just kind of like tab right through it. But basically, all of that would be used later. I'll just go ahead and talk about these other ones here while I'm here, because they're not actually used anymore. Yeah, here we go. I started keeping track of the damage per rolls, in a sense. So like right here, we could see that I dealt 13 damage. This actually, I'm remembering quickly, I didn't actually do this properly. I just recorded it on like a line basis. So like we didn't all roll this time, I just didn't care. This is just a note to myself. But I started separating these out on like a line by line, so in a sense I could see that like right here, we'll say like this 10 roll, it created a 10 damage kind of thing. Don't know when I started doing that. I think, yeah, right here looks about it. Give me 1 second. That was my cat. It's gonna be a great stream. Yeah, this is when I started separating them out so that I could start doing comparisons. This one was damage taken. We can see here that the DM got a higher roll and ended up doing damage to our player character for 9 damage. We can also see the total damage dealt and total damage taken. I was doing pretty hot, taking 300 damage in total in comparison to everybody else, and also dealing the least amount of damage. I guess technically that was my role, but I hated it all the time. I was always wanted to be the highest damage and not worry about any damage taken. I also died the most. So you can really see my amazing D&D playstyle from my graph here. I shouldn't have been so accurate in my recordings. But anyway, all this is fine and dandy, but of course we do have our graphs and charts. But this stuff goes into this tab here just to get summarized. I'll go ahead and zoom in a bit so we can actually see these. These are just helper columns and cells basically. So this would go ahead and say, okay, they rolled this many ones, they rolled this many tens kind of thing. So this is just a checking on the rolls. It checks this one right here, I believe. Don't know why it's not highlighting. I hope I didn't. Oh my gosh. Oh wow. It's. I've gotten a lot better at Excel from this point, but it looks like I actually typed in the individual numbers here instead of just referencing the cell. I don't know why I did that. I knew enough about Excel to not do that, but that's. I guess I just did that. Wow. Anyway, so that's that. If you're wondering why these are broken up into 1 to 10 and 11 to 20, for whatever reason, the graphs, at least the way I was using them, they wouldn't accept more than 10 inputs or 10 different y-axis, I guess. So regardless, it wasn't working out properly, so I wasn't able to get all of the items on the graph, so I had to separate it out in half, which it's not too bad, but it doesn't make the graphs really comparable when we actually look at them. Here, this is... I have no idea. Oh, okay. This is just the individual table, I guess. I don't know why I did it like this either. I mean, it's just the same thing that's over here. I imagine just because I did it separately for another graph and I didn't know how to just not deal with this line is my guess, even though I could have just deleted that line. And I'm not gonna pretend to understand why I did something like this a long time ago anymore. And then we got over here, this is just the track of the percentage margins. I'm not entirely sure if I did the percentage margin stuff correctly. I think it's helpful. If I say helpful, it's just one of the things you can grab as a statistic because it's there. I'm not very good at statistics, but I imagine there's some sort of pattern we'd want to see with all of these sort of ratios in terms of like the difference between the die, that it would be more common to see like this percentage difference or not. But that's kind of what I'm getting at. This 0% one, I think that's if the dies equal each other. I think that's usually just a reroll anyway. And then just the wins and losses. And this would be per person here, and then say all versus our DM, our wins and losses. So if we go ahead and go to our graphs and charts, we can see a very fun sort of, well, we can see fun graphs. At least I think they're fun. And we have this one which compares everything to say these are all 10 rolls, or less than 10. These are all greater than 10. So we can kind of see who rolled the most and who rolled the least. Now, looking back on it, these graphs aren't necessarily comparable like this, because if we go back to the D20 tracker, we can see that there was a bit of variability here in the amount of rolls that people were doing. And so even though, you know, we would expect to see a sort of flat line in a sense, like everything was even because it's an even percentage, they're not like super comparable. Like this isn't like completely accurate. It does show the data aggregate like this, but it would be nicer if we did a lot similar rolls and then the comparison would be a little better. But that's not really here or there. This is just for fun, so it's not super important. And in all honesty, we didn't really think our DM was cheating. It was just like one of those situations where when you're on the losing side, even if it's like 50% of the time, it feels like it's way more. But we can see here on the graphs, we actually did win more. Now it says loss, but that's the DM losing. We can see that because of the other graphs here, that this is just a summary of all the wins. I did not put that correctly, but basically it was very frustrating because I could see that every other player had statistically at least won more rolls against the DM except for me. So that was a little annoying to know. But again, that's neither here nor there. This was just something fun. It was a little project, and I really enjoyed making it. And so this is sort of the basis for comparison that I would be using. If you're wondering about these two right here, I don't even know if they're popping up on the screen. It looks like they're not. I probably should have scrolled down. I really should keep a better eye on what's actually visible. Looks like the tabs aren't visible. That's interesting. Okay. Well, again, this is a test stream. I'm going to reiterate that probably 100 times, just so I'm forgiven for all of my sins. But that's probably for the best. I have two other tabs down here that I guess you can't actually see. And these two tabs just are further projects that I will want to be working on this channel. So we'll leave those for another time. And it's not like anybody's asking me about it right now anyway. So we got this as a basis for comparison. I think it might be easier to sort of share the screen and have like a side-by-side comparison. But I know what I want to do, so I'm not particularly worried about it, I guess. That's probably the best way I could put it. I also have no idea what category to put these things in. So if for whatever reason someone looks at this wondering why it's in the science and technology area, it's because the other ones I'm not really sure about. Like, I don't know. I don't think this goes into education or how to. I mean, like maybe entertainment. I mean, that's why I'm doing it. I think it's fun, but it's not really entertainment, I guess. I don't know. And it's not gaming, that's for sure. So I wasn't really sure where to put it. So that's why it's here. There's not like a Mizik Excel category. Maybe not yet. But anyway, so that's why it's there. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and leave this open and open up a new Excel file. Well, I say I'm going to leave it open. I'm actually closing it. And I'm not going to save anything. But at least with the way the program seems to work now, it will open up, or rather it'll just know that I want Excel. It looks like I can make that fit the screen there, so that works. So you can't see past row, what is that, 42, 43? Yeah, okay, that's fine. I'll go ahead and open up the D20 tracker on my side, just so that I have it as a comparison here. And I guess if I need to go back and reference it, I can figure out how I'm supposed to do that. But anyway, how am I going to go ahead and start building this? Well, we saw on the first one, I can actually just copy and paste kind of over here the general sort of comparison. It looked like this. We'll go P1 and DM. And we'll zoom in like crazy so we can actually see this. So if player 1 rolled a 5 die, we would check the DM if they had any roll. DM rolled 6, okay, we lost. I might keep it a little bit simpler and do this, because realistically, as long as you're keeping track of this, you can introduce any other statistics later on, and you don't even have to do it in this tab. You could just have all of those calculations somewhere else, sort of. No, I guess it still wouldn't have it in this tab, just because if you're doing like a count like I was doing. But regardless, we'll do it later, and maybe not even include it, and just have like a win-loss kind of comparison, because that would supposedly even out. But the more point I'm making is that it was a column headers. I don't really like this setup anymore when it comes to inputting stuff. Now, if you have a setup like this, it makes sense. So again, we'll do 7, 2, that would be ideal. It never happens. Now if I hit enter, it goes down to the second line here, and we can keep going, and that's unrealistic. But regardless, my point is that you can tab through and hit enter, and it would take you down to the next one, and that's great. However, I had multiple lines, so this would be P2, and DM. And it gets a bit annoying if, for example, you're here and you tab through and you're like, okay, now we're going here and DM, and then, oh wait, I actually need to go to player 3 here now, but I want a separate line so I can record the statistics properly. If you really care about that kind of stuff, well, now I got to tab all the way over here to P3, and then of course you go to P4, and so you're thinking, okay, well, it's better just to use the arrow keys, because then I can just move it over like this, and now it's, well, I said P4, but we'll put the P3 in here just to be a little more consistent with this kind of stuff. So, you P3, so maybe use arrow keys to get over the P4. We go whatever the roll is, and then we hit enter, and then it goes here, but now we got to be all the way back to P2 or P1, depending on the roll orders, of course. But my point is that it's frustrating. It's frustrating to constantly either have to tab and then start over, or hit the arrow keys and then need to be the beginning. It's a hassle. It is a hassle to enter it like this. That is what I'm getting at. It makes sense from a visual perspective. You can kind of see what's going on, but from an entering perspective, it sucks. So rather than that, I would rather have it be something like you enter the player here, and the role, and then say like a column for DM, something like that. And so you would say, we'll go ahead and stick with our P1, and we'll say your role was 2, and maybe there wasn't a DM role there. So we can actually, instead of doing the arrow keys like an idiot, we can tab, go here, and then we do P2. Cool, they rolled a 5. Maybe there was a DM roll, it was a 13. That sucks, but that's more likely. We hit enter. We're back at the start, and we're exactly where we need to be. Maybe it was actually P1 for some reason again, because they got a reaction or something like that. Well, regardless, more what I'm getting at is that it always sets you back to the same place. You have the exact same information you have to enter each time, and it's not that big of a deal. Now, in reality, I probably don't want to do P1, P2, P3, P4. I'd rather do like an initial, because it would just be quicker to enter than P1. Doing a letter number is just kind of annoying. It helps if it's patterned and you just want it once or twice or something like that. But for entering purposes, I would rather just do like C, E, A, something like that. Just so easy. And then have, in a sense, like a legend up here of what it would look like. And kind of the same idea, we'd have like a total roles column here. I think having the information there is totally fine. I don't really see a big issue with that. And then it would just do like equals. It would be a pretty easy one, because you wouldn't have to do every individual column. You just have to make sure that you went to B5, and we'll just say B, I don't know, 10,000. So that should be pretty good for the majority of your time. I don't think I got, I think I got to maybe like 1,000. Yeah. So I got to row 1,068, and that was 1,800 rolls. Of course, that doesn't make sense. You would think that the rolls would be the same if you're doing one per line, but of course at the beginning I didn't actually do any differentiation. But again, it's just, it wouldn't, 10,000 is probably pretty safe, and if you need to update that, you need to update it. It's not that big of a deal. You just go here, update it. So again, easy. It's just right there. I'd probably still want to do the player 1, player 2, player 3 kind of stuff, where I showed the total rolls per person, and this one, again, pretty easy stuff. Just equals sum if, whoops, not sum, countif range, we do BB. Look, we don't have to worry about setting a range on that. Criteria. Wow, I did that wrong. I know, I totally know what I'm doing. The count ifs. That's what it is. There we go. Count ifs. We're gonna do BB. The count if be the criteria range. Damn it. I mean, darn it. This is what the fun part is. It's figuring this stuff out. Not that this is particularly difficult, and I'm making my life harder than it should be, because I think I could just do. I probably just want to move that, and then just count the letters rather than count the numbers, because you can't do like just a count of the numbers since they're all grouped like that. You would have to do the count if range. This time the range would be here. Probably want to do something very easy like that. Of course it says P1, so we'll pretend C is P1. There we go. And from there it'll count that. I don't think that would run into any issues, because I'm looking at my old one here, and we have no instance where, say, we would want to input something but we didn't have a role. I mean, it's a role tracker, so you wouldn't put anything that isn't a role. So I guess that makes sense. So that's fine for now. It's relatively easy to edit too, so that's not too big of a deal. I'm going to be 2 seconds. Okay, and we're back. So let's see here. We have that. We'd probably want to edit that a little bit, because, like, well, rather, we'd want to have it consistent. So a lot of this stuff would be like, you'd fill this out once, and then you'd be consistent with it every time. We could put some conditional formatting in there to make sure you don't mess it up, which might be kind of helpful, but, you know, it might be kind of annoying at the same time if you mess it up and it just pops up with an error window. So we'll think about it later. Again, this is probably going to be broken up into at least 2 streams. I'll probably want to end this one in about an hour, and we're 30 minutes in, so we'll kind of see where we go. Anyway, so let's see. We have our totals. We'll probably want to add the rest of those. We'll just go ahead and continue with our fun trend of doing P whatever, and we'll have 4 players for now. That's not including the DM. I guess we'll have DM here too. And then, yep, that's fine. That is not fine. I don't know why. I would rather just alt equals and sum that. There. Okay. That is actually accurate. And then we actually don't run into our other issue, where we were having the 10,000 thing. That's a little bit better. I don't really care for the layout just yet, but again, that's stuff that can be fixed later on. I also just like gray as a heading, so get used to that. probably just move that down. Or better yet, put it over here. I guess DM should probably be first. Just kind of makes sense. It feels like it makes sense at least. Well, actually, no. I feel like I'd rather have the total here. Just because, let's say you have more than 4 players and you want to add it. Oh, come on. That's not a circular reference anymore. Right. We're good. B2. Yeah. So if you want to add more players here, then you would want to just have the space open. I mean, I don't really know what like a max size for a D&D campaign would be, maybe like 6. But regardless, we'll just have 4 for now, and it should be easy to add or subtract someone without everything kind of just moving around. That's kind of what I want to get at. So even though it seems a bit weird to have the total on the left, it does allow for easy editing, so more people can kind of just join in instead of, well, I say join in, but you know, you can easily add or subtract without having to mess anything up. And I don't know if it was too clear, but we did have these areas hidden. That way we can always see them, just because that's also kind of helpful. I actually probably want to keep that. I was making it off too much of how the old one looks. But we'll worry about the freeze pane in a little bit. I'm still not entirely sure what information I want at the top all the time. This would also probably be better in like a Google Sheet where everybody can enter it in, rather than just one person, because I can tell you from being the one person that entered it in, it was quite a pain. Okay, so we have our player check. We'll go ahead and actually put in the proper things there. That is not a problem, I swear. I did this right. Should be just that. That's not really an issue, isn't it? Because I shouldn't be counting it anyway. I guess there's a technical possibility that it could be counted. I've always been kind of annoyed by this one. It's kind of a weird error. Because like the Countif wouldn't actually catch it because it's not total or this. So even though it's annoying, I think it's dumb. So I mean, we could just like make it easy, make our lives easy, and just move things around a bit, which I might just do for now. Because again, I don't really like having to move things all around too much. And then we'll just move this over 1. Yeah, might not look too bad. We can probably just make that a merge cell or something. Merge cells aren't bad, by the way. I use them all the time. There's some people that will probably be not too happy that I like my merge cells, but it is what it is. You can get around the fundament. This is not what the point of this is anyway. That'll probably be what most of this is anyway, just me going off on tangents about random things. I know we've been staring at this screen for, what is it, like 10 minutes now? And nothing has changed. So we'll go ahead and keep working on it. Again, a D20 tracker is not that difficult. So we have our count. We can go ahead and drag that over now. That is not what I wanted. F4, that'll go ahead and lock the cell in so we can drag it around and not worry about it. And then we're going to want to lock the 2, right? Yeah, I think so. So we can drag this over properly and should be checking. Okay, we're good. So we've got that part done. We now have our total roll statistics, and then we could complicate the formula more so that this is always here, so it's always able to pick up more people without showing up with the stupid zeros. but we'll just leave it like this for now. This is just to get the sort of framework done and make it as easy as possible to enter this stuff in. I'm also going to be avoiding stuff like VBA and macros for now, just because for the most part I want to be able to upload this stuff to something like Google Sheets where anybody can sort of use it even if they don't have Excel. So some of the more complex stuff might be put on the back burner. I do want to get into that and whatnot. I'm not amazing at it, so I'd love to learn and be able to do more stuff with VBA and macros and all the other fun stuff. But for now, we're going to go ahead and stick away with it and just make it stuff that can be used by anybody, even if you don't have Excel. And I forgot about that. Again, we're just going to make our life easy. And we're going to completely forget that that is not where the DM roles are. They go over here. I think that makes sense because we want to do comparisons. And so we can do a different formula, which would just be a straight count. And it would just be C6 to, we'll do our 10,000 here. 10,000. There we go. Okay, and we can move it back. So that's that. And then, I mean, there's no harm in just doing the calculation here, but it also gets a lot easier since we don't have to really worry about it. I think what I would want to do then is just do something like, we'll do something like this. So equals, well, do we want to show the win or the percentage? Do equals this divided by 20. So we'll go ahead and get that into a percentage just so we can see what's going on here. So 20 or 2 is 10% of 20. That's fine. Drag that over 1. Say our DM roll is 10. So 10 is 50%. So we want to know what's the difference between 10 and 50. And then we can just do that. So it's 40%. Now, we can just shove this all into one formula and have it as clean as possible, or we can just break it out. I don't really think there's an issue with breaking it out, but at the same time, we're going for ease of use. So let's say that we do have an extra player. You know, do we want to... Does that really matter, I guess? I keep thinking about the columns that I've done, but I guess that's not really all that important with this one because we can have as many lines here as we want. We can do whatever we want with this area. We can calculate something really stupid and just have the information here rather than worrying about its placement within the columns because that's how it was before. So this actually kind of works out. We can have as many helper columns as we want. Just make this easy. Say this is a 40% difference. Or we can, let me see, I can just like copy and paste a formula that I have in here and compare it, see what we're doing with. See, we're on line 6, so we can just grab this line and put it here. And remember that this is checking different stuff. So we'll go ahead and just edit the formula to grab the correct cells. So this would be F6 was actually B. That's how it's working. No, it would be the other way around. So DM was on the left and G6 we can't actually see. So we'll go ahead and just change that manually to B. Come on, B. There we go. And then let's see what's going on here. It's going F6 and that became C. And this became B. And then we did this again, I guess, for some reason. This would also be B. And I think I can just drag that over. No, I cannot. Don't know why I thought I could. But it should be a bit easier this time around. Do this. And I think this one, and and that one, right? And we're still valuing. Oh, forgot to move the G6, which would be the player. Let's see, okay, we messed that up. That should be something else, probably. Probably has the same properties as this. So we'll go ahead and change that to C. Okay, that works. Is that even correct? We'll go ahead and put our header back in here, just so we can kind of see if that was actually accurate. Oh, hey, it is actually. That's cool. Well, I say that's cool. I mean, it should be correct. I made it. Yeah, I'm not a good guarantee for these things to be perfect, but I can at least get it done nowadays without much trouble. Again, I don't really like this formula. I don't think it's a particularly amazing. And this was just the 0%. This one was a simple one. Let's see, we're still doing left to right. So we have this one, which goes to the DM. I imagine, again, there's easier stuff, but it might be helpful just to go ahead and look at this and get a refresher on what I used to do. And then this one just says, is the DM, no, is the player. That should be player, right? Why did I do DM there? See, and that's greater than 0, do that. Does that even make sense? Well, let's go ahead and put it in context here. I'd have F, which would go to the DM, right? Yeah, go to the DM, and this one would, damn it, go to the player. And we ran into an issue. Let's see, the player did not win this roll. Should have been the other way around. Why is there a third column here? That's E. This should be going to the player, I think. This last one. Yeah, I think that was how I had it. Let's see. If and F equals G, F there, and then G. So, is that even the right column? Just put it there. Oh, that was for 0%. Whoops. Well, that kind of explains why that was wrong. Let's see, G4. I knew that looked a little weird, because we'd want to check our player character against the DM. There we go. Okay, so we see that this is actually correct. It is doing what it's supposed to be doing. These formulas are a bit long, and we only really need to look at 3 of them here. So we'll do formula to text, and then we'll do it here for 0%, just because it's different. And we'll do our win. Okay, so I'm trying to think whether or not we can just consolidate this in any way. And I don't have the public at the moment to help me out. So we're going to struggle through this for as long as it takes, or at least for the next 15-ish minutes. And then I'm going to cut this stream. Okay. So let's see here. We have these numbers, which is helpful. And in this case, we're just saying DM percentage minus this. So really just saying what's the gap, and if it's positive, we know that the DM rolled higher. And if it's negative, we know that the player rolled higher. So we can do that check here. I think that one is pretty normal, but I think I flipped it around on this one, but that's fine. I think the setup is better anyway. I don't know why I had it DM first on the old one, since I'd be more often than not recording player roles, so it'd be better to have the player at the front rather than the DM. That's how I see it anyway. You know, now that I think about it, it might actually be better if the player had their own columns, if they were all entering it on the same Google sheet. So the column idea might not still might not be too bad of an idea, but if you're like one person entering all this stuff in, which is probably what it would be, having this is better. So I guess there's merits for both, but I just chose the worst of both worlds when I decided to enter this. So that's that. But let's go ahead and keep going here. So I guess we could use this here. I think having this in one formula, like this whole line here, is not a bad idea. So we'll go ahead and do that and kind of work our way from there. So we would first want to do equals this divided by 20. And then, I guess that'd be backwards here. It doesn't really matter all that much if it's negative or positive, and we're already on the left side, so we'll go ahead and continue it this way. And I don't think I need to put these in parentheses, but I think it's a little bit clearer sometimes when you break things out inside of a formula so that you can kind of see where the divisions are supposed to be, even if you know order of operations and what is and isn't necessary. So we get negative 40, which is fine. It's just the reverse here, so we're happy with that. So we've got to this without having to break it out all individually. And it doesn't matter what this is, so we could still get our 0%. It looks like our formula over there is working, which is good. But we'll go back to 2, so we have our 40%. Not entirely sure why I chose this breakdown either, but that kind of is what it is. I guess I could have done like no, that wouldn't have made sense. Anyway, just going to be talking to myself for the most part here. So let's see. If we have one column here, we can probably just go ahead and delete this now. We could even sign flip this if we wanted and not really worry about it, but again, the percentages don't really matter too much. So we have our player, our DM, we'll just say percent difference. This is not something that would be shown, of course. It would just be the percent difference. So we could do that, and then just have, we'll see, like, I still think this is in some way not a bad way to have the check, but at the same time, it is just a bit annoying to have this really long, arduous formula that could be cut down in some way, most likely. Especially where you have stuff like this, where it's like equals to 0.5, or, you know, it's also is less than 95. So that's what's going on here. It's saying, is this greater than 0.5 and also less than 95? If so, put it here. If not, don't. So it just seems like something like that can kind of be improved on. But yeah, actually, to tell you the truth, the whole thing here now has actually been done. All this is just extra. This will keep track of everything properly. But again, we're looking for quote-unquote cheating. So we'd want to, again, have these sort of statistics. But at least right here, we can see just outright, if it's negative, that means that we lost. So that could actually be a good starting point. We can say win-lose. And that could be a column that would be shown. So do just win-loss. Easy enough. And equals if this is negative. Actually, we don't even need to do that. We can actually just put this in the same formula. So we can just do that. That should have added an extra one there. So if this is less than 0, we'll put a contingency for the 0 in here as well, and just call it tie or something like that. So if this is less than 0, comma, we'll go ahead and say loss or lose, comma, and if if it is not less than n 0, we'll say another if formula. And this is why I probably should have just kept it separate, because copying and pasting this stuff is a pain. Do that, so, but instead if this equals 0, comma, we'll just do tie for now, and then comma, and this is false. Win. Congrats. We'll put it in all caps because that's a good thing. And we don't see it very often, even though technically we should see it 50% of the time. Okay, so it says lose. If it's exact even, it should say tie, and if we're higher, it should say win. Okay, so we got that working, and then yeah, I think I'm going to have it as a helper column because I'd want to refer to it multiple times rather than just writing the whole thing over and over. And I just wish I could get that a little bit more accurately. Using the dark version of Excel can be a little frustrating sometimes, especially for highlighting stuff. Is that doing what it's supposed to? 0, 2.4. Okay, so this is accurate. So instead of referencing this, we'll have it reference that. And same thing here. Go ahead and say D6, and it'll do the same thing. Again, the only reason I want to have this do that instead is just because it'll be a little bit easier for reference purposes, because this formula is a lot shorter now. It's clear, it's just D6. We know what D6 is. It's negative 40%. Again, just for simplicity's sake, because like this stuff right here, this is annoying. You're just going over and over again, just checking it, saying, okay, we'll check this and this and this and this. So that, to me, it just gets tedious, and I'd rather just put a helper column, because what's the big deal? It doesn't really make any difference. But I guess I have to have a contingency here to say whether or not the DM actually rolled. How did I do that here? Let's see. Actually, I should have the formula, right? So if and subtracted, checked that, and B6 was greater than 0. And in this case, B6, really? Thanks, B6. Why would I check B6 instead? No, that can't be right. I'm looking, yeah, probably because I'm looking at the wrong formula. That would probably help if I looked over here, and that's G4. In this case, it's B6. Okay. I think that's pretty fair. We can just take a quick if and. So, does that complicate it though? I could just do like another nested if, huh? That might be a bit easier. If that, so we'll just do this is greater than 0, comma, that, otherwise, blank. Okay, and then we don't run into our calculation here, and that's fine. So I'll want to do like an is text or something here, just so we can, I think that would work, right? It would probably be equals 4. Well, I think text would work because there's actual text there. Is text true? True, true, come on. Okay. I don't remember exactly how is text works, I guess. It just equals, or it doesn't equal blank or something like that. Point is we can do it later. Okay, so got our percentages. We've got our decision tree. It tells us what it is, win, lose, or a tie. And then we can kind of do the calculations from here. We could probably do something where it just, is it less than this, minus one of these or something like that, just so that it simplifies the formula. I don't want to do this. Plus, I've already done it, so I could just do something else. But that's kind of at the heart of it, and just trying to see if I can make it better. But hopefully, maybe for our second video, we'll have some people who are more knowledgeable than I in mathematical formulas and formulas in general, just to sort of get the answers we want. But we still got about 20 seconds. So I'll probably go ahead and just end it here. Again, this was just a test stream. Not a lot really happened. I think I was fumbling with the mic for about 5 minutes anyway, so that'll probably dissuade anybody from watching this. But I'll add a little timestamp. It just says start here. So we'll see how that goes. I'm kind of thinking I want to do this tomorrow, maybe. Maybe later in the day. I haven't really set a time. Maybe Sunday. It kind of depends. Most of the stuff will be done on the weekend. Okay, sorry about that. I'm going to officially end the stream now. Okay, bye.